What's it like to be homeless?
I can't get employed. This is the only thing I can do.
Recently, News Center 13's Kathy Soltero spent 2 days and nights on the streets of Des Moines as a homeless person.
We're going to find out what it's like to be homeless in Des Moines for about 48 hours.
Kathy Soltero lives on the streets 48 hours, homeless, Wednesday at 10 on News Center 13. 2 days until election night.
Good morning. The 1992 campaign winds down this weekend. President Bush has been whistle-stopping in Wisconsin. Bill Clinton was stumping nearby in Iowa. And Ross Perot appeared in person in Florida. Truly, the end is near. Today, Sunday, November 1st, 1992.
From NBC News, this is Today with Scott Simon and Jackie Nespral.
And good morning, everyone, and good morning, Jackie. We're here in Washington, D.C. this morning to observe the end of this year-long trial, the 1992 campaign, and it's on this last weekend in particular that the candidates, the campaigns are sort of like, they have to show their hands, as in a poker game. And you can tell by where they campaign and where they don't campaign, where they figure they have a chance or where they have no chance to win.
Well, the race could still go either way in key states like Michigan, New Jersey, and Ohio. The Bush campaign needs those states badly. We'll talk this morning with our political roundtable and get their predictions. We'll also see how women candidates are doing in what was being called the Year of the Woman. Scott?
We're going to try and assess how President Bush or a President Clinton or a President Perot might change the U.S. Supreme Court, and we'll spell out each candidate's position on some of the major issues this final weekend, just days, hours really, before the election.
But first, the news. In the final hours of the campaign, President Bush takes his campaign from the Midwest to the East Coast today. Most polls indicate it's a very close election, although Clinton appears to have the lead in 24 states with enough electoral votes to win. The president is trying to close the gap in undecided states. 2 of his stops are in the key states of Michigan and New Jersey. He campaigned all day yesterday in Wisconsin. That story from White House correspondent Jim Mikolszewski.
On a train trip through Wisconsin, this weird election year got even weirder. First of all, Bush was campaigning in a state where he shouldn't have a chance. Even Michael Dukakis beat him here 4 years ago. And after first wishing that the Iran-Contra scandal would just go away, Bush himself brought it up. He tried to turn it into a one-on-one personal battle over character.
Being attacked on character by Governor Clinton is like being called ugly by a frog.
Bush campaign officials insist that the newest revelations that appear to contradict Bush's version of Iran-Contra just don't matter to most voters. Bush called Clinton's attacks desperation politics.
Yet he is now latched on to these silly little charges, accusations, in a desperate attempt to stop his free fall in the polls.
Governor Clinton also begins his day in the Midwest. He's in Cincinnati, then heads east for rallies in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The latest CBS New York Times polls show him with a lead of 8 to 9 points. 2 other polls have Clinton ahead by 3 points. And he continues running hard. Robin Lloyd reports.
In Davenport, Iowa, despite bad weather, Bill Clinton worked the crowds like an underdog candidate fighting an uphill battle. The campaign is now in a grueling final swing through the battleground states of the Midwest. Clinton arrived in Wisconsin, where Bush had spent the day campaigning.
I need you. I need you. America needs you. Wisconsin has always been a beacon of hope for genuine, hard-headed, practical, compassionate progress.
Clinton is now in an attack mode, trying to paint a gloomy picture of what it would be like if Bush won. And in a televised town hall meeting in Milwaukee, he also stressed the importance of the latest evidence questioning Bush's role in the Iran-Contra scandal.
It's definitely a new, very important piece of information. And there ought to be an answer to it.
Later today, Clinton moves east to Pennsylvania and New Jersey to try to pump up turnout among traditional Democratic voters. Robin Lloyd, NBC News, with the Clinton campaign in Milwaukee.
While Bush and Clinton campaign in the east, Ross Perot goes west to Orange County, California, and then to San Francisco. He attacked the president yesterday at rallies in Tampa and Kansas City, saying Bush couldn't win, and with his record, he shouldn't win. Perot said Bush was responsible for running up the national debt and for allowing the country to fall into a recession.
All of those wonderful people who are lifelong Republicans.
In Liberia, 3 nuns were reported missing today by the Catholic Archbishop. That follows the fatal shooting of 5 American nuns at a convent in the capital of Monrovia. The 3 missing nuns, who are Liberian, were at the same convent where the killings took place. The other nuns also are missing, but are said to be alive. The Space Shuttle Columbia comes home to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The astronauts' morning wake-up call had a definite football theme. The Notre Dame fight song was played for the shuttle commander, James Weatherby. He's a graduate, and yesterday the Fighting Irish beat Navy 38-7 in football. Scott, you must be happy about that. Weatherby says the Columbia mission has been a complete success. And that's the news at this hour. Let's take a look at the weather with Joe Whitty. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Jackie.
Happy about that win, too, in Notre Dame?
Yes, I am, and also happy about the win for the Huskies in Washington State.
You always have to be a little concerned when a service academy loses a football game. I think you have to kind of wonder, you know, is this a good thing for our defense posture?
That's right. Let's take a look at back in history, at weather history. Now, back in 1916, there was a squeaker of an election, and it wasn't until a day after the election results came in from California. It was a cliffhanger because a winter storm dumped a foot of snow in northeastern California, and by the next day, when the telegraph lines were back up, it was obvious that Woodrow Wilson won by 2,000 votes, thanks to California. Stormy day in the mid-Mississippi River Valley, and on today's weather map, you see a chance of some very strong thunderstorms over the southern sections of the Mississippi River Valley, northern sections, some real soaking rains. That's a quick look at the national weather. It is now 5 minutes after the hour here on Today. For Chicago, a wet and windy day, a high of 50 degrees, and some soaking rains for St. Louis, back to Kansas City, up to 2 inches at times. Also very thundery down at New Orleans with a high of 80 degrees, 86 degrees at Miami, home of the Hurricanes, of course, and 48 degrees and stormy in the Pacific Northwest. Now, New York City Marathon is today a mixture of sun and clouds, kind of cool, but perfect for runners, perhaps a little touch cool for the viewers, but 26,000 runners. A hot spot would be Brownsville, Texas, where it's going to be 93 degrees. And now here's our man who should have some marathon shoes on, Scott Simon.
As Joe was noting, there are more than 26,000 runners, real runners, competing today in the New York City Marathon. The top finishing men and women each receive $20,000 and a car. What do they need a car for? With the rest of today's sports, here's Bill Crowley.
In college football, top-ranked Miami extended its winning streak to 26 games as Gino Torretta passed for 3 touchdowns. The Hurricanes beat West Virginia 35-23. But second-ranked Washington played its best game of the season, rolling up 467 yards to beat Stanford 41-7. The Huskies could move back to number 1 or at least a tie. Number 7, Georgia, was surprised by number 20, Florida, as Shane Matthews tossed 3 scores in a 26-7 victory. And number 11 and undefeated Boston College could finally move up to the top 10 on the strength of 3 TDs by Chucky Dukes. The Eagles smashed Temple 45-6. Purdue gave third-ranked Michigan a Halloween scare by taking a 17-7 halftime lead. But then Michigan got an early Christmas present as Jesse Johnson ran for 111 yards, and the Wolverines beat Purdue 24-17. The most interesting play of the day there featured an unexpected touchdown by a hair, but no excessive end zone celebrating this time. That's today's sports. I'm Bill Crowley.
You know, and he might not need the scholarship. Up next, our political roundtable squares off. Please forgive the expression after these messages.
Sunday Today is brought to you in part by GE. From plastics to financial services, we bring good things to life.
To experience the true joy of cooking, it must be pursued with reckless abandon and total disregard for the inevitable splatters, spills, squirts, and the occasional splash. Fortunately, GE's new profile cooking appliances have ingenious quick clean features, like lift-top ranges, self-cleaning ovens, easy wipe surfaces, and sealed burners. So they clean with just a wipe. GE's new profile appliances are so easy to clean, they take the joy of cooking to new heights.
Things you never heard about a brand cereal before.
Wow.
If you've never heard this about a brand cereal, try Kellogg's Frosted brand. It's different. It's lightly frosted, and it's crunchy, so it tastes delicious. Kellogg's Frosted brand. It sure doesn't sound like brand. Oh, one more thing you never heard.
You know, that's bran you're eating. I know, it's great. Unlike big juice companies, we have a different idea about corporate ladders, mergers, even stockholders' meetings.
Morning, Ed. Hi, Bob.
Florida's Natural brand is a nut-from-concentrate orange juice made by a co-op of Florida growers whose only business is making juices. They own the land, they own the trees, they own the company. It makes for a difference you can taste. Florida's Natural brand premium orange juice.
Happy birthday to you.
If you'd spent the last 95 years selling cars, you'd make a big deal out of it, too. It's Oldsmobile's 95th birthday celebration, and your local dealer has great deals on every model, like this Achieva. Lease it for only $209 a month and get automatic transmission, anti-lock brakes, air, power door locks, AM/FM stereo with cassette, and more. See dealer for details. Oldsmobile's 95th birthday celebration. It's a big deal.
This week on Today, Election Day and the race for the White House.
We'll have continuous coverage of election results and hear from all three presidential candidates.
That's this week on Today.
It is now less than 48 hours before America begins to vote on governors, senators, representatives, referenda, and, of course, President of the United States. Our political roundtable is reconvened this morning. E.J. Dionne of the Washington Post, Cynthia Tucker of the Atlanta Constitution, and Jonathan Alter of Newsweek. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, I want to, let me get something in my pocket. I want to set polls and all that sort of stuff aside. After yesterday's show, I went to a pizza place on 59th Street, and just a shack, if you please. And I overheard three people from Rhode Island. I overheard a conversation. It occurred to me, first time in months I'd heard political conversation where I wasn't interviewing somebody. And if I could get you, they said three things I wrote down. Bill Clinton is too smooth. He knows nothing about foreign affairs. What's he going to do if there's a war in Bosnia or something? Put on a headband and protest like a student. They said Ross Perot is crazy, but if he drives the media crazy, he must be saying or doing something right. And then, I'm tired of Bush. So many people want to change things, but they can't, so they figure they can change something by voting against Bush. Now, I also, I could not tell how they were going to vote.
Scott Simon will win in a landslide.
Yeah, that's no, it didn't.
I think that there's always dissatisfaction at the end of a presidential campaign. I mean, we haven't seen one, I think, in a long time where people didn't say things like that. Mm-hmm. But I think that usually that's the worst sign for the incumbent. And that when people are this dissatisfied and they're undecided at the end, in most races they shift against the incumbent. And that's what happened to Jimmy Carter in 1980, and I have the sense that that's what's going to happen this time.
See, I think that presidential elections a lot of times come down to visualizing the future. What will the next 4 years hold? And the person who gets a monopoly on the future ends up winning. Bush's problem is he's running this sort of Halloween scare campaign against Clinton, but people in their own minds can't imagine what would 4 more years be like. So when Clinton and Gore say on the campaign, how would you feel if you wake up on November 4th and see a headline, 4 more years of Bush? That's just about their most effective argument, because Bush hasn't visualized what it would be like.
Scott, I also think, though, that this level of dissatisfaction indicates a difficulty for whoever wins on Tuesday. I think that there will be a problem with governance. If Bill Clinton gets in the White House, I think he will have to act very quickly. He will have to have an agenda that he runs through in the first 100 days, because he isn't going to have very much time. George Bush, I think, if he wins the presidency, will have an even harder time. People are so dissatisfied, they want results very quickly, I think.
Although there's a flip side to that. Eugene Debs, the American socialist, once said there should be another beatitude, which would go, blessed are they who expect nothing, for they shall not be disappointed. Yeah. And I think the best thing that the new president will have going for him is that people won't have huge expectations of the government or of the president.
I don't agree with that, EJ. I think that they will have very high expectations for Clinton. There will be a sort of psychological depression in a lot of quarters if Bush wins, because he ran such a negative campaign. But if Clinton wins, he will be invested with all of these exaggerated expectations.
Well, let me ask about that. You know, because on the one hand, the process and maybe rival campaigns degrade a candidate on the way to defeating him or her, and then somebody wakes up and they're president of the United States and they have to govern. For a few weeks, it seemed, at least I thought, that this campaign threatened to be fairly high-minded. And now we're seeing some ads. I think the first one we're going to see is a clip from an ad that President Bush has run. They usually do it better than that.
For military service. This one claims he wasn't. One of these candidates is Bill Clinton. Unfortunately, so is the other.
There is a simple explanation for why this happened.
And that's sort of extraordinary, the use of the blue dot, as we saw in the Palm Beach trial, which appeared over Patricia Bowman's.
I thought that was relatively high-minded, that commercial, compared to the one, the Night of the Living Dead commercial that the president has on now, showing a vast wasteland if Clinton is elected. I mean, I thought actually when I saw that ad, that's from some time ago, that was a reasonably fair ad, that Clinton does often sound like, even when he's not being on both sides of an issue, he gives such careful answers that that's how he sounds to people. And I thought that was a fair shot.
But it doesn't work because Bush isn't a man of principle. If Bush were Reagan and hadn't himself been on lots of different sides of lots of different issues, it would have been a much more effective ad.
I think we have to acknowledge, though, that these negative ads clearly have had an effect. Like you, Scott, there was a moment, and I think it was during the debate at the University of Richmond, where we all thought that perhaps the candidates were going to stick to the issues. The audience pleaded very eloquently for them to do so. It seems that the American public doesn't want to hear negative ads. On the other hand, those ads clearly work, or Bill Clinton's negatives would not have gone up toward the end of the campaign. So politicians will continue to use those negative ads as long as they prove effective.
If I could throw a quick question to you as we start to run out of time, E.J. Is Ross Perot a losing candidate potentially, or a movement?
I think he's going to have a hard time sustaining a movement at the end of this, but I think he's going to be with us for a long time. If Clinton wins, I've had the idea that maybe Clinton should send him to the Soviet Union and help Boris Yeltsin out, who has some problems. That would achieve a lot for a lot of different people.
I say have him run the post office.
Well, throw that into the hopper. Okay, we'll be back on Today after these messages.
America's love affair with the automobile shifts into high gear, starting now, with the new GM MasterCard. Every time you use it, GM will credit 5% of your purchase toward a new car or truck from GM. 5%. That could mean hundreds, even thousands of dollars in savings over and above any other discounts or rebates. And there's no annual fee. The GM card, the new financial vehicle.
Oh, you love butter. Fleischmann's found something other. It's over butter. All the smoothness of butter with a rich, creamy flavor. New over butter.
New Fleischmann's Move Over Butter.
I'm paid to buy the high-volume copiers. I don't want to have to worry about them.
The corporate line from Canon.
If our copiers are working, our people are working.
Reliable high-volume copiers you don't have to think about. The corporate line from Canon, the new power in high-volume copying.
Elaine Baxter has taken us for a ride. While Iowans struggled, Elaine Baxter has taken trips to Florida, Vail, and New York, all at taxpayer expense. Elaine Baxter has spent our money irresponsibly on lavish furnishings, balloons, and interior decorators. And who pays? Elaine Baxter voted to raise the gas tax, the sales tax, even voted to tax Social Security benefits. It's time to tell Elaine the free ride is over.
You're watching some of the Tower Medical Clinic's most acclaimed medical procedures. Listening, touching, healing, preventive counseling. The physicians at Tower Medical Clinic are qualified specialists who combine state-of-the-art medical technology with personal patient care. The Tower Medical Clinic, here for your good health. For an appointment, call 279-WELL.
People have been calling this election year the year of the woman. There are 11 women running for U.S. Senate and 107, the most ever, chasing seats in the House. But now many of these women candidates are facing some political realities. Barbara Boxer's been getting up early and hitting the campaign trail for 10 months now, running hard for a seat in the U.S. Senate. But recently, the pace has intensified. She's in a fight for her political life.
It doesn't really help our country to have the highest legislative in the body in the land just have men in it, 98-2. As we say, just won't do.
A new poll last week showed Boxer in a dead heat with a Republican opponent, Bruce Hershenson. Last month, another poll showed her leading by 22 points.
I heard that we're getting out 5,000 to 10,000 pieces a day here.
Like many of the other women running for office, she's running into trouble as the election draws near.
We are at the brink of change. It's an exciting moment in history.
But at the beginning of her campaign, Boxer benefited from all the hype surrounding what pundits and the press have dubbed the Year of the Woman.
Do you really feel this is the Year of the Woman? It is, because women for the first time are being considered. Not that we'll all win, we all won't. But the fact is, we're being considered, and that's tremendous to see that all across the nation.
Women are being considered. There are more women running for the Senate, Congress, and state legislatures than ever before in U.S. history. But Hershenson calls the Year of the Woman a sexist concept.
What if I went around the country promoting the Year of the Man? What if we always just talked about our gender? I don't care what gender a politician may be. I care about what's in the head. Also, the whole thing's phony anyway, because it's a year of the certain kind of woman, liberal woman. Republicans had 6 women running for the Senate in 1988, 2 Democrats. No one called it the Year of the Woman.
Boxer is one of 10 Democratic women running for the Senate. There's only 1 female Republican candidate. And almost 2/3 of the women running for Congress are Democrats, too.
You got a lot of women running for office. As I said the other night, I hope a lot of them lose because they're liberal Democrats, and we don't need more of them in the Senate.
Many of the highly visible races involving women candidates have been tightening. Carol Mosley Braun in Illinois has slipped from a 35% lead in July to a 10% lead this week. And in Washington State, Patty Murray's lead has dropped from 24 points to 5.
Maybe one of the downsides of all the hype about the Year of the Woman in politics is that the expectations were extraordinarily high. I think this is going to be an historic year for women in the Senate as well. If you think we've never had more than 1 woman elected in her own right in an election cycle, we're going to have Barbara Mikulski reelected, probably Dianne Feinstein, maybe, some additional ones. This is big progress for us. The difficulty is everyone was saying, we're going to elect a dozen, and that's so unrealistic.
Certainly everyone anticipated that the races would tighten up at the end of the campaign. For one thing, in most of those races, the male candidates have far more money to go up on television and are taking advantage of that. What we are counting on is the turnout of the voters, men and women, who this year are still giving women candidates an edge. Women candidates are seen as more honest, they're seen as agents of change, and historically in Congress have taken the lead on different issues than the men candidates have.
An ad campaign aimed at getting women to the polls has been put together by a nonpartisan group called The Deciding Vote.
Someone who can make a difference. You.
I hope that women form a political constituency so that candidates come to them and ask for their opinions in the future and are interested in their priorities, and that women will therefore be able to influence what goes on in the country. I think this year, it's been one of the most difficult and interesting elections ever. I think it has helped vitalize women and mobilize them.
No matter what the outcome of the election may be, this much-touted Year of the Woman has given many women around the country a feeling of solidarity and shared concerns. At a San Francisco fundraiser for Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein, 3,000 women replaced a lyric about brotherhood with the word sisterhood. And one additional note, if all the female candidates were to win on Tuesday, and that's not likely, the 103rd Congress would still be 80% male. We'll have more on today after these messages.
The world's first dynamo was invented by Werner Siemens in 1866. It began the revolution that brought electricity to everyone. That was then. This is now. The generation, distribution, and control of energy are at the heart of Siemens today. Where you work, live, and play. And with 35,000 people at work nationwide, Siemens is leading the way into the next century. Siemens, precision thinking.
The new baby was up all night. Now you gotta make the morning right. Folgers always come through. It's decaffeinated too.
Mountain-grown Folgers decaffeinated. It gives you something the other leading brand doesn't. Richer aroma to wake you up.
Now you're off to a great start, 'cause Folgers warmed your heart. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
What do you like best about Barnard's Family Restaurant? Is it our convenient drive-up window? Is it our friendly, attentive service? Or is it our delicious, satisfying food? Barnard's big, beautiful sandwiches, stuffed with real chicken, real turkey, and Barnard's specialty real roast beef, prepared for your good health, served on a freshly baked bun or croissant. Or is it our delicious homemade soups and taste-tempting desserts? What's best about Barnard's? You decide. Barnard's homemade goodness, fast food convenience, south of Douglas on Merle Hay Road.
Elaine Baxter believes it's time to take a stand for a woman's right to choose. Elaine Baxter is pro-choice. She believes women should make their own decisions and that government should stay out of people's private lives and personal decisions. Jim Ross Lightfoot takes an extreme position. He wants government to ban abortions, even when the woman has been the victim of a rape or incest. The difference is clear. It's time to take a stand.
Pollsters who use scientific samples to make their projections seems to be having some trouble making some of those predictions this year. Even those mythic bellwether counties who have histories of usually voting for the winning candidate seem to be more difficult to figure in 1992. There is one such county out in the West that has not been wrong for so long that an intrepid crew from the esteemed British Broadcasting Company put on their pith helmets and ventured forth into the desert country of Oregon.
If the election were held today, who would you vote for President of the United States?
A radio station polled voters in remote Crook County in Oregon. The results could become national news because for over 100 years, in every one of the last 27 presidential elections, this county has voted for the winning candidate. Theories abound as to why this isolated community has become America's only remaining bellwether county.
To be a little facetious, it's a deep, dark secret. And it's so secret that I don't even know what the secret is. The main one that I hear is that we are typical of Americans as a whole, that we are down-home, average.
In demographic terms, the community hardly appears average. After all, this is a county where cows outnumber people. There are hardly any minorities. The population is 97% white. But retired teacher Red Huntley says people here do share common characteristics with the country's crucial swing voters who generally determine the outcome of presidential elections.
They are not terribly influenced by propaganda. They seem to separate it from whatever is real. And as a result, when they go to the polls, they're pretty close to what's going on.
This year, for the first time in more than a century, Crook County may well be in danger of losing its bellwether status. The current presidential campaign has thrown the 8,000 registered voters here into a bit of a quandary.
You talk to one and it's for this one and for that one, so you don't know which is which.
But without equivocation, Crook County voters echo one national trend. They're unhappy with President Bush's handling of the economy.
I lost so much money in the last 12 years, I can't afford to vote Republican again.
Crook County hasn't been wrong in 108 years. The latest local opinion poll has anointed Governor Bill Clinton as the presidential winner with a 4-point lead. Tom Brooke, BBC News, Crook County, Oregon.
And we'll have more on today after a station break.
Saturday Night Live goes prime time for a presidential bash.
Should be a hootenanny.
A special SNL, the presidential bash. NBC tonight at 9, 8 Central.
Warning, the following paid political commercial contains graphic scenes that may not be suitable for children. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
In his paid television commercials, presidential candidate Howard Phillips has shown graphic, grisly pictures of unborn children whose lives were extinguished intentionally with premeditation by hired killers, described in the media as abortionists. Well, it's time to end the cover-up. Here are some of the names, addresses, and faces of the abortionists who kill for money and who commit their grisly deeds in our state. Howard Phillips urges you to contact these baby killers and urge them to mend their ways. A vote for Howard Phelps is a vote to prosecute the baby killers for premeditated murder. Vote for Howard Phelps for president on November 3rd because it's not a choice, it's a child.
Paid for by taxpayers for Phillips for president.
Kathy Soltero lives on the streets, 48 hours homeless, Wednesday at 10.
Joe Whitty. And we're in Washington today on this last weekend before the election. Coming up in this half hour, people in California are being asked to vote on the right to die. It's a proposal to allow doctors to assist patients in suicide.
Also in this half hour, we're going to have a checklist of each of the candidates' positions on some of the major issues, and we'll try to examine what each candidate would be likely to do about Supreme Court nominees. But first, Jackie has the news.
This is the big push, the sprint to the White House finish line. Daily tracking surveys of the popular vote for ABC and CNN USA Today give Bill Clinton a 3-point edge, a statistical dead heat with President Bush. But CBS New York Times polls have Clinton's lead more stable at 8 or 9 points in front. Ross Perot is a distant third. President Bush is nursing a cold and a hope that he's finally got momentum. He says Clinton is in a free fall with the voters. But the president devoted an entire day to a train tour of Wisconsin, a liberal state with just 11 electoral votes. He brushed off fresh disclosures about his role in the Iran-Contra scandal, calling them silly little charges. The president campaigns today in Michigan, then heads east to New Jersey and Connecticut. And whatever the polls say, it's winner take all for each state's electoral votes. The LA Times says it appears that Clinton is ahead in 24 states with 4 more than the 270 votes he needs. But Clinton has a busy schedule campaigning in these last hours. In campaign overdrive, the governor raced from Georgia to Iowa to Wisconsin, carrying his traditional themes. He's blaming the president for economic hard times and urging supporters to take back the country. Ross Perot finishes up in 2 states where volunteers gave him his big start last spring. He's in California today and returns to Texas tomorrow. And he airs the last of his TV infomercials on all 3 networks. In Florida yesterday, the billionaire Texan slammed President Bush and praised his own supporters.
Everybody said you can't give the American people bad news before an election. Well, we laid it right on the table, and look at the size audience that's here today. Number one, he can't win. Number 2, with his record, he shouldn't win.
The space shuttle astronauts call their 10-day space mission a success. As Columbia headed home to the Kennedy Space Center, an experiment they left behind is already hard at work. A satellite launch yesterday in space is beaming back laser signals to help predict earthquakes. And a night out for little witches and modern monsters turned to fright in Pennsylvania. 8 children are hospitalized for hallucinations, headaches, and nausea. The children had all been trick-or-treating in a Philadelphia suburb. But officials say tainted candy may not be the source. Only 2 of the kids are believed to have sampled their treats. Doctors say the children are recovering this morning. Tests continue to determine what made them ill. And that is the news at this hour. Let's take a look at the weather with Joe Whitty.
Yes, what would you vote for the weather for today, huh?
Well, I think it's going to be sunny and cloudy. Diplomatic,
yes,
right?
Very good, very good. Some places would not vote very well for the weather across the country because it is going to be a stormy day and up and down the Mississippi River Valley. Take a look at the latest radar that we have on the map. You see those big storms moving out of Texas into Louisiana. Some of those will bring torrential downpours of 2 to 3 inches, and we'll have some heavy rain also for portions of Missouri, southern Illinois into Indiana, so a real soaker of a day there. Now on today's weather map, you see a threat of thunderstorms down over Louisiana, cool and cloudy over the northeast, a pretty decent day for the New York Marathon runners, and for Election Day, this is what it looks like. We're going to find ourselves on Election Day, Tuesday, with a little storminess over the northern plains states. And that's the latest here. It's now 4 minutes after the hour on this day, 2 days before the election here on Today. In New York City, a high of 48 degrees, 86 degrees in Miami, in Chicago, 50 degrees, and here in Washington, D.C., where the Giants play tonight, it's going to be a chilly, damp night, 52 for an afternoon high, and cloudy and drizzly. 83 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's 72 in Dallas-Fort Worth, and for Claremore, Oklahoma, it's Will Rogers Day, so pull on your cowboy boots, put on your cowboy hat, and hustle on down and do some roping. Sunny and temperatures in the cooler 50s. And that's the latest weather across the country this morning. And now here's Scott.
In addition to all the candidates on ballots around the country, there are many local decisions that are being placed before the voters. Proponents of a proposition on the ballot in California next Tuesday don't argue that the law they want to pass will frustrate death, but they think it may give terminally ill patients more control over their lives. If approved, Proposition 161 would make it legal for doctors to help a patient die, to induce death in patients who are expected to die within 6 months and want a physician's help in choosing when to leave. They don't make people more interesting than Mary Baker Hall. She's 60 years old, lives in a retirement center in Santa Rosa, California, and writes mystery novels about an elderly investigator named Emmett Chisit. Miss Hall has breast cancer. Her chest is scarred. Her spine has been shriveled. She says dying will not be difficult, but she does dread the pain and indignity of gifted doctors and miraculous machines keeping her alive too long.
And I bought a handgun, and I've tried working that trigger. It takes some strength. I've thought through how to do this so that family or friends or neighbors won't have to find me, so it's the least bloody way possible. But I'm going to lay down and shoot myself in the head. And I'll have to do that much earlier than if I could wait for a doctor to give me an injection.
Opponents of the proposition have run dramatic and disturbing commercials.
161 would allow doctors to give lethal injections, but even those...
Opponents, which include most medical organizations and many religious groups, say the proposition is imprecise and could permit, say, ophthalmologists and dentists to diagnose death for patients who request it.
161 has no real safeguards. No on 161.
It's about...
Father Miles Riley argues that any new law is also unnecessary.
We have the natural death directive already to let someone die without extraordinary means, without life support. 161 is about killing. Mercy killing, but killing.
I'd rather say dying than killing. If it's something I want done and I ask this doctor to help me, he's helping me. I'm dying.
I think the question really is, whose life is it anyway? It seems to me that people should be able to control their own destiny.
Attorney Robert Risley of Los Angeles is the author of Proposition 161. His wife died of ovarian cancer 8 years ago. There's some people who believe that we're stewards of lives. We don't own them. That we all, as a community, we all have a stake in each other's lives.
I recognize that position. I honor it and cherish it. I think it's the basis of our Judaic-Christian tradition, and I do not even personally have any quarrel with that. And if we're put here at God's will and we believe that God wants us to stay to the very end, that's what we should do. But those who are of a different belief system should be able to make that choice independently.
In one sense, you're free to drive to the Golden Gate Bridge and jump off. And hundreds of people have, and all of them jump toward the bay. None of them jump toward the ocean. Isn't that interesting? But you're not free to ask me to drive you.
I don't think other people have a stake in my life to the point where they can tell me I have to lay in that bed and suffer.
In the beginning, it will be the idealized scenario that you describe. Somebody in great pain, terminal pain. There doesn't seem to be any human reason why this life should go on. And so they say, let's end it. Let's put them out of their misery. It's what they would have wanted. It's what they did want. Next year, it's tremendous psychological suffering. The following year, it's the older person who says, you know, I'm really taking up space. And I'm concerned ethically and spiritually about the slippery slope. Who plays God and on what basis?
I don't see it that way. I think the slippery slope is towards towards the other direction, that we're going to have too many people kept alive by artificial means at great expense, and hospitals will become, how shall I put it, warehouses for unwilling living corpses.
The advocates of Proposition 161 argue that it's doctors and their life-prolonging, agony-extending technologies, not those who want the right to die, who deny the will of God or the ways of nature. Mary Baker Hall doesn't seem to be just biding her time against death. She writes, she travels, she reads, she's good company. A bright and funny woman who keeps a gun in her bedroom, not to scare off burglars, but to reassure herself. I just worry about everything building up one night, and you walking to wherever you keep it. No?
No way. Not me. I'd make the best judgment I could about when it was time to do that. But there is still the other issue that I've raised. My life is going to end anyhow. And I'm probably going to stick it out through considerable misery and suffering before I decide there's nothing left that's worth having. But suppose I did end my life 6 weeks before maybe I really had to. So?
And coming up, where the candidates stand on issues that are important to American voters after these messages.
Mariel, you and I have always been big fans of professional hairstylists.
You bet. I adore mine.
And I bet he feels the same.
But you know, I have to admit something.
Yes?
When I see those scissors coming at me, I just want to grab them. I love to change my hair. Thank goodness I trust my hairstylist completely. And the truth is, I feel great about my hair because of him. Well, and of course, Paul Mitchell, I wouldn't think of using anything else. Yeah, you and my hairstylist, you made me what I am today.
Paul Mitchell products are guaranteed only when purchased in fine salons.
I have to admit, I'm a little surprised.
About what?
I just never thought I'd see you in anything but a BMW or Lexus.
Me neither.
Airbag? Leather? This is quality. Expensive?
About 10, 15,000 less than the BMW or Lexus. I think it feels just as good.
What? Oh, this Pontiac Bonneville. It's amazing.
Most families have two dishwashers. The heavy-duty model pre-washes everything, loads it in the other model, then tackles what didn't fit. But why? With the new Maytag Jet Clean dishwasher, you don't need to wash all your dishes before you wash your dishes. It has a 6-tier racking system that exposes everything to the cleaning power of 43 powerful jets, making your second dishwasher somewhat unnecessary.
You'll get used to it.
Maytag, the dependability people.
Dad, you're going to be late for work. And you're not to leave this house without breakfast.
Oh, and who does that sound like?
Hey, I'm just doing what Mom told me.
Enjoyed your position of authority, huh?
Don't you?
Give your family all the nutrition of a complete meal with Carnation Instant Breakfast.
Don't suppose your mother told you which tie I should wear?
No, just the part about a good breakfast. Oh, Dad. Not that one.
Carnation Instant Breakfast, because life doesn't stop for breakfast.
How's this?
Hi, Dad.
During the second presidential debate, one American voter got through to all three candidates. He asked them to stop talking about each other and pay attention to the issues. And most voters say they want more information about the candidates' positions on the issues. So here it is.
Most polls indicate that the economy is foremost on voters' minds. So the candidates have spent a lot of time talking about what they do to revive the economy.
Because I think we've got the best program to stimulate the economy and create jobs in the private sector. And we've got them in education, we've got them in job retraining, and we've got it in stimulus to small business, which is the motor that drives any economy.
Raise some more money, spend the money on tax incentives to have growth in the private sector, take the money from the defense cuts and reinvest it in new transportation and communications and environmental cleanup systems. This will work.
Perot says the deficit must be tackled first in order to revive the economy.
This is the most important issue that faces the country. We have a $4 trillion debt. We increased it by $400 billion this year.
Nobody's saying read my lips this year, But here's what the candidates have said about taxes. President Bush supports an across-the-board tax cut, a reduction in capital gains tax, a $5,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers, and aid for small businesses. Governor Clinton proposes a tax hike for families with incomes above $200,000, a cut for families with incomes below $60,000, investment tax credits for small businesses, and a tax hike on foreign corporations. Mr. Perot advocates a tax hike on incomes above $56,000 for individuals and $89,000 for joint filers, a new tax on gasoline that would cost the average family $300 per year, and new taxes on Social Security, cigarettes, and company insurance plans. On the issue of health care, President Bush supports health insurance tax credits of up to $3,750 for moderate and low-income families, health insurance networks to help small businesses buy coverage, job lock protection so that people changing jobs won't be shut out of their new employer's health plan, and malpractice reform to reduce health care costs. Governor Clinton is proposing employer-provided health insurance, government coverage of the unemployed, standardizing insurance policies, and expanding Medicare for the elderly and disabled. Mr. Perot supports a national health board to oversee health care reform, federal funding to state health care programs instead of implementing national health care, and increased funding for prenatal care and immunization. On the issue of education, all three candidates say they'd spend more money. President Bush's proposals include the America 2000 program, which enables parents to choose their child's school, the GI Bill for children, which gives parents $1,000 to cover school costs, new national achievement tests, and increased funding of programs such as Head Start. Governor Clinton supports fully funded Head Start and women, infant, and children programs, overhauling America's public schools, creating tough national standards, and establishing a national service trust fund. Perot advocates increased funding for preschool programs, school choice, national teaching standards, and reducing school bureaucracy. On the issue of foreign policy, President Bush endorses UN efforts in the former Yugoslav republics and in Somalia and Iraq, and a 25% cut in defense spending by 1997 while keeping 150,000 troops in Europe. Governor Clinton supports humanitarian aid to the former Yugoslav republics, enforcing UN resolutions in Iraq, and cutting the number of U.S. troops in Europe by half. Mr. Perot supports the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Europe, aid to the former Soviet Union, and the elimination of nuclear warheads. On the issue of abortion rights, George Bush is opposed, except in cases of rape, incest, or when the woman's life is in danger. Governor Clinton supports abortion rights, as does Mr. Perot.
And another issue many voters are considering this year is the Supreme Court. What kind of new justices would each candidate appoint? We'll take a look at that after these messages.
We'll be back after these messages.
The rush is on for the incomparable new GE Profile refrigerator. The GE Profile is full of smart ideas, like a shelf that tucks away for tall things, and shelves that glide out so you can find things. It's called Smart Space Design. Smart ideas that let you put things in, take things out, and clean things up so quickly and easily that you'll never again miss your favorite commercials.
Jonesy? Uh-huh. What are you doing out there?
Hiding.
Huh?
Mr. Jenkins says the package I sent him didn't get there. He's calling every 5 minutes to yell at me.
It's probably in his mailroom. Just call Federal Express. They'll tell you when it got there and who signed for it, so Jenkins can yell at him instead.
All I gotta do is call Federal Express? Great.
Only Federal Express can confirm delivery in seconds. Other companies can take days.
What are you doing back there?
I didn't use Federal Express.
Next time, use Federal Express.
Elaine Baxter has taken us for a ride. While Iowans struggled, Elaine Baxter has taken trips to Florida, Vail, and New York, all at taxpayer expense. Elaine Baxter has spent our money irresponsibly on lavish furnishings, balloons, and interior decorators. And who pays? Elaine Baxter voted to raise the gas tax, the sales tax, even voted to tax Social Security benefits. It's time to tell Elaine the free ride is over.
You'll find terrific savings this week at Walgreens.
Monostat 7 is on sale. Cream or inserts just $14.99. They're $11.99 after rebate. Carefree Panty Shields are only $1.29. They're free after rebate.
Auto-inflate or finger digital blood pressure monitors. Your choice just $59.99. And save over 40% on personal optics reader glasses. Full or half frame, even bifocals, a $14 value, now only $7.99.
For the best values, hurry to Walgreens.
The past 12 years of the Reagan and Bush administrations have wrought major changes on the Supreme Court and federal courts. If George Bush is reelected, will he hold to that direction? And what would a President Clinton or a President Perot do with Supreme Court nominations? Joining us now, a longtime colleague of mine, Nina Totenberg of National Public Radio, who now also reports on the court for NBC News. Thanks for being with us, Nina.
My pleasure, Scotty.
And how many court nominations might come up in the next 4 years?
Well, you can't be sure, but I would guess somewhere between 2 and 5. The best estimate is 3.
And if President Bush is reelected, given the history of his appointments now, what kind of appointments could fairly be anticipated?
Well, they would be more conservative appointments. In fact, Robert Bork just last week signed a letter for a conservative organization to lobby in a second Bush administration to make sure that judges appointed to the Supreme Court and the lower courts would be very conservative. I think we would have to assume, if President Bush is reelected, that he would name members of the court who would, some of them or one of them, provide the 5th vote to reverse Roe versus Wade.
Would they be conservatives in the David Souter sense or the Clarence Thomas sense?
Well, my guess is that the president would seek to name somebody more of the Clarence Thomas variety, unless the Senate was able to get its act together to simply hold up the barrier and say we won't confirm that kind of a person.
Now we should explain, Judge Souter, of course, a conservative of impeccable credentials, on the other hand, has shown a facility for compromise with more moderate viewpoints on the court than some other people.
That's right, and he and Justice O'Connor and Justice Kennedy have comprised what might be called a conservative center of the court.
If Governor Clinton were to be elected, what kind of Supreme Court nominations might we anticipate?
Well, they would certainly be liberals. I don't imagine that they would be lefties for the most part, but considerably, very much more liberal than current members of the court. Most of the Clinton people I've talked to seem to say that Governor Clinton, if president, would not want to have big fights with conservatives over this, so that he would not want to use up chits with the Senate, and he would go for people who would not cause big fights. They would be more moderate liberals, and he would save his chits for fights with the Senate over his economic package and other things.
Has he as good as promised an appointment if he's elected to Mario Cuomo, the governor of New York?
Well, Mario Cuomo is the only person he's mentioned as a possible appointment to the court. I don't think you could say he's promised it to it, but he said he'd like to name someone like Mario Cuomo. And I think it's interesting to note that the last person to serve on the Supreme Court who contributed to our national life in some major way, other than being a judge, was Thurgood Marshall. And there's nobody on the court with any real long-term political experience. And traditionally, we've had some people on the court like that. So there is a list of people that is growing who might be named to the court by a President Clinton who have that kind of experience. The Senate Majority Leader, George Mitchell, is another one. Patrick Leahy, the senator from Vermont. Madeline Kunin, former governor of Vermont. The list, I'm sure, will get bigger, but those are the kinds of people that Clinton might look to. I certainly think we would look for more women and more blacks on the court if he were named.
And if Ross Perot were to be elected, doesn't have a record of appointments except in his business, but he has hired lawyers.
He has hired lawyers, by and large. He's hired lawyers who are the top of their profession. I think he'd undoubtedly look for highly qualified people, probably with some kind of a business orientation. For the record, I guess I might note that most of the lawyers I know of that he's hired are liberal Democrats. Now, the one that has been his longtime friend, Tom Luce, and his lawyer for a very long time, the two of them are no longer on speaking terms. So Mr. Luce is a Republican.
The next president, or if President Bush is reelected, will also have a lot of appointments, several hundred coming up in the federal judiciary. Can we quickly cast as to what the differences might be?
Well, I think you can reflect that those differences would be similar, but to a lesser extent in the lower courts. Right now, Presidents Bush and Reagan have named 70 to 80% of the judges on the lower courts. Those judges who are by and large conservative overwhelmingly dominate the courts and will for some years to come.
Supreme Court hasn't been the issue some people projected in this campaign, has it?
You know, it's interesting. I think that the Supreme Court and the abortion issue related to it may have pried open the door for some people to consider Clinton, particularly some maybe female suburban Republican women. But it is not, I imagine, the decisive issue for anyone. It's just allowed them to get in the door.
Okay. Thanks very much, NPR's Nina Totenberg, and we'll have more on Today after these messages.
If you hold your nose, you can't really taste things because your sense of smell is so important to taste. That's why great aroma is so important to Folgers. Here, smell for yourself. Come on, it's new TV technology. You smell that? They use aroma-roasted mountain-grown beans, then they specially grind them. No wonder people like Folgers better than this other coffee. No contest.
Folgers, aroma so rich, you can taste it. Ah.
You're married. 2 kids. 1 on the way. A house. A dog. 5 on the way. Loads of other responsibilities too numerous to count. And you want this. Doesn't make sense. But here is an interesting alternative that does. The new Volvo 850 GLT.
In 12 years, Charles Grassley and his staff cost us $12 million. And we got these 12 laws for our money. It's no wonder he's spending millions to spread all those vicious lies about Gene Lloyd Jones. He can't get the job done in Washington. He may brag about his attendance record, but watch out, he's failing Iowa.
You'll find terrific savings this week at Walgreens.
Monistat 7 is on sale. Cream or inserts just $14.99. They're $11.99 after rebate. Carefree panty shields are only $1.29. They're free after rebate.
Auto-inflate or finger digital blood pressure monitors. Your choice, just $59.99. And save over 40% on personal optics reader glasses. Full or half frame, even bifocals, a $14 value, now only $7.99.
For the best values, hurry to Walgreens.
For us today from Washington on this last weekend before Election Day. Coming up on Meet the Press, Tim Russert will be talking with Republican National Committee Chairman Rich Bond and Democratic Chairman Ron Brown.
We hope to see you again next weekend. We'll be back in Studio 3B up in New York City, and hope you can join us then.
And I have an announcement to make.
Proudly announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
It's time to take out the trash and clean out the barn.
New Hampshire tonight has made Bill Clinton the comeback kid.
And I can't wait for this campaign.
Never give in. Never give in.
Let's set the horn.
My dog Millie knows more about foreign affairs than these two bozos.
Trying to dig up some dirt on my mama. That's how bad they want to stay in power.
I don't want everybody in America plucking chickens for a living.
Time for them to go.
An all-new
eyewitness video tonight. A whitewater rafting weekend turns to terror. You're sucked into a raging whirlpool. Eyewitness the hero's dramatic rescue. Then, a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. He robs them, she films it. See their home video that brought them to justice. And Hurricane Andrew, never-before-seen video. Eyewitness video, NBC tonight.
Equality, an interesting word. Some people want me to pay more for my car insurance and life insurance, the same high rates that men pay. I cannot afford that kind of equality. The same people say I should have the right to marry a woman and my brother the right to marry a man. Equality? He's got to be kidding. This peculiar kind of equality is called ERA. They even threaten to take away my dad's veterans benefits because he's a man. If they